My rant today, my daily take over at HartmannReport.com is titled "House Republicans Are Playing with Fire in with our economy." And it's not just that they're playing with fire, it's that the fire that they're playing with could be World War III. And, you know, there's a couple of important points that or what I think are important points that I'm making in this op-ed today. The first is that we're about to hit our debt ceiling. Right, it's going to happen on Thursday of this week. Now, Janet Yellen, our Treasury Secretary, is going to be able to move money around and pause things and change things so that maybe we can get through June without going into default. But she's warning the House Republicans that they are playing with fire. And, you know, they're perfectly willing to do it, and there's a couple of reasons. The first reason that House Republicans are willing to do this is because the billionaires who finance them hate paying income taxes, and even though they only pay 2 or 3% of their income in taxes, most billionaires in America, you know, they want to make sure that if the day ever comes when we actually start taxing billionaires at the same rate that you and I pay taxes, that most of the social programs are gone, so their taxes will be low. I mean, you know, they don't make any bones about this. Everybody understands this. So first, the House Republicans think this is going to help them politically because the billionaires will throw more money at them. I mean, whenever you have a financial crisis, while it wipes out working families, divorce, suicide, homelessness, poverty, all that stuff, they're great buying opportunities for the morbidly rich. The Great Depression was when some of the greatest fortunes in America were made because rich people had money and they could buy up distressed assets. Warren Buffett made $35 billion on a $5 billion investment in Bank of America back in 2008 when George W. Bush crashed the economy. Second, though, and I think this is more important, House Republicans have no sense of history. This goes back to Arnold Toynbee's statement, you know, that when the last man who remembers the horrors of the last great war dies, the next great war becomes inevitable. Those those countries whose leaders fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat the lessons of history. This is, you know, I've talked about this before, Strauss and Howe's book, The Fourth Turning and all this sort of thing. You know, 80 years after the Revolutionary War, we had the Civil War. Well, it was the crash of 1700 followed by the Revolutionary War. 80 years after the crash of 1857, followed by the Civil War. That was 80 years later. Then 80 years after that, we had the crash of 1929, followed by World War II. And we are now 2 years short of 80 years after the end of World War II. And I think it's a real important point to make that if the Republicans succeed in throwing the United States into debt, into default, throwing our debt into default, which it appears that they are fully intending to do. There was a piece in the Washington Post over the weekend talking about how they think they've got a strategy to kind of walk us through this in a way that won't have too much fallout, right? Which is complete BS. The moment that you declare that our debt is in default, asset managers all around the world are just going to start running in the other direction. There's a reason why the dollar and the U.S. Treasuries are literally at the core of the entire world's international financial system. And that reason is that the United States has never defaulted on its debt. And if Republicans can throw us into default, it will produce a second Republican Great Depression, like the 1930s. Now, what happened during the 1930s? That Republican Great Depression that was caused by Republicans right here in the United States. Herbert Hoover, well, actually it was Warren Harding, having deregulated Wall Street in 1921, led right to the crash while Hoover was president in 1929, in October of 29. So what came out of that? What came out of that was Mussolini, Tojo, and Hitler all deciding that the West was so weakened by this economic crisis that they could use that weakness, they could use that crisis as an opportunity, in the Tojo's case, to invade China, in Hitler's case, to invade Poland and Czechoslovakia and Austria, the Anschluss, and which led us straight to World War II. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if these Republicans, if these House Republicans throw us into a second Republican Great Depression, which they are proclaiming they are perfectly willing to do, if they don't get big cuts in Social Security, Medicare, the Environmental Protection Agency, food stamps, aid to education. They want all that stuff cut. Over $100 billion in cuts the Republicans are demanding, with no tax increases and no closing tax loopholes and no cuts to defense spending. If Democrats won't go along with that, Republicans are saying they will crash our economy. And if they crash our economy, and that depression goes worldwide, as it will, we are the largest economy in the world. You know, the old saying in Japan used to be, when America catches a cold, Japan gets the flu, or America sneezes, Japan catches a cold. Canadians say the same thing. So what will the result of that be other than misery for average Americans and a great buying opportunity for very, very morbidly rich people? The outcome may well be that Putin will say, hey, now's the perfect time to really go all out on Ukraine, even use nuclear weapons. That President Xi of China will say, hey, this is the perfect time to take Taiwan. I mean, after all, this is what Tojo thought. This is what Hitler thought. Economic crisis, opportunity. And of course, it's what the billionaires in America thought back in the 1930s. I mean, they weren't billionaires then, they were multimillionaires, but you get my point. And I'm just like, you know, we have never defaulted on our debt, and the Treasury is warning us about. Did you know that John Boehner, the reason why Paul Ryan became Speaker of the House, John Boehner chose his successor, basically, was because Kevin McCarthy in 2011, when they tried to do this same thing to Barack Obama, when the House Republicans tried to do the exact same thing, crash the economy on the debt crisis, Boehner worked out a compromise. Kevin McCarthy was unwilling to go along with that compromise, and that's why Boehner said screw you to Kevin McCarthy, who wanted to be the next speaker, and chose Paul Ryan.